I'm giving endorsements, and I'm endorsing people that have been good for us and good for the Republican Party and that have voted our way. I'm endorsing some people that I think have been very good, and they're all going to win, and they're going to win big.
Trump, as you can see there, he ain't going away. Besides trying to play kingmaker in races across this country, he's also talking about launching his own social media platform after he was booted from Twitter and Facebook for inciting violence on those same feeds. Trump, he's trying to get revenge on elected officials who dared cross him and not support his big lie about election fraud. He's starting where else but in Georgia, endorsing Congressman Jody Hice to run in the GOP primary for Secretary of State against incumbent Republican Brad Raffensperger. You may remember that Trump, he was caught on tape calling for, magically, Raffensperger to come up with just enough votes to overturn the results. Raffensperger refused to be bullied in for the consequences. He's now being primaried. The whole mess, I should mention, is the focus of one of many criminal investigations. Another guy who Trump is sure to support, Alabama Congressman Mo Brooks.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass. So I have a question for you. Will you fight for America?
We remember how that turned out. Brooks, he was a part of the Stop the Steal lie. He's just announced he's running for U.S. Senate and still spreading lies about the election being stolen from Trump in the process. But it's not just the grand old party that's dealing with some fissures. President Biden, as he continues to push his progressive agenda, starting with a massive stimulus plan and now talk of a huge infrastructure package we'll get to later on in the hour, some moderates get nervous that he may be tacking too far left. My next guest, she's written about both parties. Her most recent pieces with the headlines, The Big Lie, Trump's Litmus Test for 2022, and also Biden's Got Problems. Is Chuck Schumer one of them? Let's bring in A.B. Stoddard right now. A.B. is the Associate Editor of RealClearPolitics. She's kind enough to give us a few minutes. So, no real headlines, A.B., that obviously the president threatening to play kingmaker. The question I have is, privately, do Republicans just pray that by 2022 he's so neutered or marginalized that it won't matter? Or do they believe that he's the president and future of the party still?
Well, whether they believe it or not, they have to act like they believe it. So while they secretly hope for indictments, a lot of them are making trips to Mar-a-Lago, holding fundraisers at Mar-a-Lago to line his pockets, seeking his endorsement, and of course, currying his favor by championing the big lie, continuing to lie about the election, to lie about voter suppression, and to challenge incumbents who did their job, like Brad Raffensperger, who you mentioned. So he is seeking to undermine anyone he believes stood in his way. And there are others that are supporting that. I saw yesterday a state rep in Georgia, Vernon Jones, a Republican, is looking to challenge Brian Kemp, the governor, who is in the crosshairs of President Trump, of course, for also refusing to overturn the election in Georgia like Raffensperger. And Vernon Jones says, if not for our governor, Brian Kemp, that Donald Trump would still be president. So we're looking at a whole pool of people who are not only trying to keep him kingmaker and act like he is the nominee and waiting for 2024 and continuing to perpetuate the big lie, but are running as people who have to get into office to make sure that he wins the next election, or Republicans do, because the ones in their party who stood up for the truth in 2020 must go. So it's incredible where you think we have come from January 6th, let alone November 3rd, when the president lost. The millions he's raised, the energy he's continued to stir up and galvanize, and how far people are willing to publicly sort of corrupt themselves in service to Donald Trump's leadership in the party.
Okay, so I get the roles everybody plays in this kabuki dance that they're doing right now for all the reasons we said, but I still can't figure out, Mitch McConnell, whatever somebody says, the man can count better than anybody in Washington. Why A.B. did, after making the vote that he did on impeachment, not joining, the other Republicans in the Senate who did, why did he then deliver that scathing speech about Trump and even saying, hey, you criminal prosecutors want to have Adam, you have my blessing in effect? Why go there and make an enemy of Trump when he's got 5 vulnerable Republican seats with resignations or people saying they're done with politics that he's going to have to fight? I just don't understand the move he made because I don't see the end game to it.
Right. Well, Mitch McConnell is, we assume, in the last term of his career. He just won re-election handily and has 6 years ahead. I think he's 77 or 78. He's conflicted. He's torn because he's an institutionalist and believes so strongly. If you hearken back to the speech he started to give on January 6th before the insurrection, he was talking about how efforts to decertify the Electoral College, the certified Electoral College results were so wrong, and that it would come back to hurt Republicans. And of course, within hours, the Capitol was under attack. So he's very opposed to what President Trump has done, the illiberal and corrupt acts he has taken, things he has said to undermine our democracy. But he voted with the people voting to acquit President Trump because he wanted to remain majority leader. He's the only person not going to Mar-a-Lago in leadership of the Republican Party. He is the only person not remaining a fanboy of President Trump. So this is a challenge to him going forward. He says he's not going to get involved in those primary elections, but he will if he has to. He said if he thinks that the candidate is someone who's going to lose to a Democrat statewide. So there's definitely some rocky times ahead, but he seemed to be trying to stand on some principle. And again, what I think is, the last term of his career, he's finally done with President Trump. And I do believe he's one of the Republicans who does hope that he gets indicted and is out of the political landscape in short order.
To the Democrats, who right now is more concerned? The progressives that they're not getting enough of what they want, or the moderates who say, listen, this may not be that safe if I vote this way in West Virginia or in Arizona, but nationally, the public likes this. You look at the polling, even for infrastructure, if it comes out, just like we saw with stimulus, the public seems to like this right now. Who's going to have a harder time saying no to Chuck Schumer when it comes to casting their vote?
Well, I don't think that Joe Manchin of West Virginia is having a hard time running the Senate and, frankly, running the Biden presidency. I knew he'd be with him on COVID relief, and so would all the Democrats. It was the first thing out after he was inaugurated. It was the most important, related to the pandemic and the economy, and they were going to come around. After that, all of these liberal wish list items that are piling up with all this pressure to undo the legislative filibuster in the Senate are really not so popular. And the majority leader, Chuck Schumer, is going around trying to appeal to progressives because he's trying to win his own primary next year and doesn't want a challenge from the left. So he's saying we're going to change America in a big, bold way, where the political practitioners in the party at the DNC and other, where within the White House, know that America doesn't want to be changed in a big, bold way, and that President Biden almost lost this election to President Trump, and that it only will take 5 seats for the Republicans to take the majority back in the House next year, and 1 Senate seat pickup for the Republicans to take back the majority next year in the Senate. And so their margins are beyond thin. Their situation is very precarious next year, when traditionally a party controlling Washington, 2 branches of government, and in the first year of a presidency, suffers losses in the midterm election. So I think that, there's a lot of talk to try to please and assuage progressives, a lot of votes in the House, a lot of press conferences and hearings and proposals of new bills and nominations that are targeting their interests and their priorities. But I don't know that you can pass another $3 trillion package that the Republicans will paint as just another Green New Deal and a tax hike and be sure of your position going into the midterms. I think COVID relief will prove popular, but after that, the party faces some serious divisions about what is politically hazardous and what progressives think the country really want. And I do think that if they, I think we're in a time here where we don't know who's going to win. until and unless President Biden weighs in on abolishing the filibuster. And if he does that, again, I think that's a huge political risk for the midterm elections as well.
Really interesting dynamics. A.B. Stoddard, as always, I appreciate a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, our bridges, they're crumbling, roads a mess, trains, airports, not much better. Joe Biden, he's trying to do something about it, but it's going to cost a lot. Mitch McConnell saying no. Before Biden's plan even gets off the ground, a hard stop from the GOP.